According to the Oxford English Dictionary, English has something like 170,000 words in active use. But how many words do you actually need in order to communicate effectively? In 2001, Canadian linguist Sonja Lang attempted to create a minimalist language in an attempt to simplify her thoughts. She called it toki pona, meaning good or simple talk in the language. While the first drafts of toki pona were published online in 2001, the first complete form of the language was published in 2014 when Sonja Lang released The Language of Good. The language's original word count? 120. If English is a thick novel, toki pona is a haiku. Sonja, as she's known in the toki pona community, has since published 2 more books about the language. In 2021, a complete dictionary with words and example phrases was made, and it even made some new words official, raising the word count to about 137. Now, the word count varies by speaker, but for the sake of this video, we'll say that the language has about 140 words. And finally, in early 2024, a toki pona translation of The Wonderful Wizard of Oz was released by Sonja. While these 3 books make up a lot of the language's official content, thousands of people online create their own content in the language, such as Polijan's vlogs or Usawi's music.
Toki, mi Polijan.
When I asked Sonja about her expectations for the language, she said, "I first created it as a sort of personal art project or self-therapy for myself. I shared it online, but didn't expect it to become so popular so fast. At the time of writing, one of the biggest online toki pona hubs, the Discord server Mapona Toki Pona, has about 15,500 members, some of whom I interviewed for this project."
I got introduced to toki pona in July of 2021. I was learning, I think, Japanese on Duolingo, and I was struggling. I really wanted to capture a language, to actually be able to use it, and I couldn't figure it out. So, in frustration, I deleted Duolingo, and I went and Googled, what is the easiest language? And I got a lot of reasonable answers. But then I found the weird one, toki pona. And it's really weird, because what's the deal with having so few words? How does it work? How is anybody supposed to use this language?
Well, toki pona is designed to convey as much meaning and as little complexity as possible. It is 9 consonants and 5 vowels, totaling 14 letters, and they're always pronounced the same, the way that they're pronounced in the International Phonetic Alphabet. Its sounds were chosen with a variety of natural languages in mind, with the goal of making it easy for anybody to learn, regardless of your native tongue. Instead of meaning something super specific, most words cover a broad topic and can be used as nouns, verbs, or modifiers. For example, lawa can mean brain, head, control, or to lead, while yan might mean person, humanity, or maybe to humanize or personify. Unlike in English, modifiers come after nouns, so yan lawa might mean something like the leadership person or the president. In toki pona, there are no proper nouns. Names are just used as modifiers. So instead of calling the creator Sonja in the language, you might say Sonja, the Sonja person. Names are also the only thing that is capitalized in the language. In order to describe something in detail, you might use a short string of modifiers called a noun phrase. Because everything is so vague, context and clarification is very important. But it's not as much of an issue as you might think. If, say, there's a dog doing something silly, instead of saying, this specific breed of dog is doing the silly thing, you can just say, suela linasa, meaning the animal is silly, The context is there that that's a dog, and we don't have to clarify what kind of dog it is.
You don't use a big specific term to refer to something. Instead, you use lots of simpler terms to get around to that larger, more complex idea. Because, of course, that's the only way to communicate in toki pona.
There's also 2 main writing systems. There's the traditional Latin script, and there's a logography called sigilen pona, where each word has its own symbol, and this one's way more fun in my opinion. Figuring out how to say complex things in toki pona is one of my favorite things about the language. It's like a puzzle of figuring out what things really are and what they mean to you.
Toki pona frees you from this world of needing to find just the right word to talk about something, and it really makes you focus on the concept that you're trying to deliver and getting a mutual understanding with another person.
Like numbers. They can get incredibly long and hard to follow, and if you want to talk about a specific amount, that's really cumbersome. And that's on purpose, because the better way is to talk about what that amount means to you personally. Is it too much? Not enough? About what you expected? Difficult to work with? Unimaginably much? Or to put it this way, is 4 a lot? Depends on the context. Dollars? No. Murders? Yes.
As I touched on previously, people have made a lot of things with toki pona, even stuff you wouldn't expect from such a simple language.
One of the biggest misconceptions about toki pona is that its low word count and relatively simple syntactic structure prevents you from having nuance or talking about complex topics like specific fields in math, for example. I would say that's not true at all. With proficiency in toki pona, just like in any other language, speakers can talk about anything that they understand and be understood by listeners. That's how my friend Lipamanka learned about like derivatives completely in toki pona, and aced a test on them afterwards.
The FAQ page of tokipona.org gives us a great view into what kind of stuff the community can make, like an explanation of non-Euclidean geometry by Jan Telecommand, or even textual transmission and textual criticism in the context of medieval transcripts, presented by Jan Lacuse. Instead of letting the limitations of the language restrict them, the community embraces them and creates wonderful things. In a celebration of this, once a year, around the anniversary of the language, there's an online event called Tsunobi Tokipona, Tokipona Day. It's like an online convention. It's got a full schedule of events, from live Tokipona games to musical performances from people like Jan Usawi to even talks and educational bits. It's a celebration of both the language, the people that speak it, and the things that they made with it.
Lovely community. There's so much going on all the time. There's so many passionate people who care so incredibly much about the language, about other speakers of the language, about putting together fun things for everyone to do.
I think what I've noticed in the Tokipona community is that we have a lot of neurodivergent people and queer people here, and I think that really shows how much of an effort people in the community put into making sure that it's a safe space for all of the people there.
I would generalize it as people who are one way or another against the status quo, who are meaningfully different from others in a way that extends to their personality and to the way they present themselves and engage with the world. And I want to be 100% clear, that is a positive.
While many people I interviewed spoke about the fun community and the great creations, a lot of them also mentioned the personal benefits and aspects of learning this language.
It's like you can sift through the garbage of your mind, or well, my mind in this case.
According to Jan Sonja, the main benefits include the ability to reframe your thoughts, focus on the meaning of things, make new friends, artistic self-expression, etc. But I think everyone values Tokipona for their own reasons. While Tokipona is much easier to learn than any natural language I can think of, contrary to what many YouTubers like to say, you can't learn it in a day. Most of the people I talked to said that if you dedicated lots of time to it, you could learn to read and write within a couple weeks or less.
I memorized all the words in maybe a week or two, and I started just digging into the community. I decided to learn Tokipona because it was weird. Super, super weird. In a very good way. And I stuck with it, in part because of that sincere weirdness was just that interesting to me. And then later I stuck with it because the community is just incredibly cool and fun to be around.
For me, Tokipona is just a fun way to express myself, and I think it's super interesting that even though there's only 140 words and super basic grammatical structure, you can still talk to and understand people. Translating feels like a puzzle, and it really forces you to think about what things actually are, instead of just taking things for granted or using buzzwords. I remember the first time somebody DM'd me in Tokipona, and I realized how fun it was to just talk to people in the language.
I'd say that Tokipona makes communication better because it's impossible for speakers to parrot jargon words or use vocabulary that the listener doesn't have a good understanding of or that the speaker and listener disagree on. Have you ever had an argument with someone about what a word means or a disagreement stemming from a misunderstanding of a specific word? If you both just break down the idea of what you're talking about, then there's no way for a misunderstanding to happen because the entire time we're only using these simple concepts and we're building up an idea from there rather than having this big preconceived notion of an idea that two people can have wildly different understandings of.
You can do a lot in Tokipona with just a limited amount of skill set, and it's made me more creative, I would say, with its like restrictions and like how I convey my ideas in simpler ways and easier ways to understand.
Tokipona, even though it has, lots of little funny complexities to it, it's quite lovely.
Thanks for watching. If you're interested in learning more about the language, I left a document in the description of this video with learning resources and other guides. Mitawala, pona tawasina.